Welcome back to Designing Persona Project. Today we're going to be designing every single one of my pets throughout every single era. I figured this would be the quickest and easiest way to cover all of them because there are a lot of pets in my life, and I honestly thought this would be a great way to honor them, share fun stories about them, and most importantly, share the thought and intention behind their designs. The first few pets you're going to see are obviously going to be ones that you might have recognized from Wild Child's era. Obviously, we're going to start off strong with Ozzy, our big, giant old puppy dog. Ozzy was a blue heeler shepherd mix, and honestly, I mostly just considered him to be a mutt because he just didn't really look like any other dog I had ever seen. He was super fluffy, he was super speckled, and I think that's why I went purple with his design, because it was just such a really weird color palette in my memories that I didn't really consider him to be a blue heeler. He was literally purple to me for whatever reasons. And I thought that contrasted well with Wild Child's green. Green and purple go together really well. So that's why I went with that color palette, in case you're wondering why this one's pretty starkly different from the rest. I also sadly didn't have any photo references to use for Ozzy. A lot of the pets in the beginning, I don't have any photo references, unfortunately. Nevertheless, I do love how fluffy Ozzy's big old mane was, and having hair covering his eyes, almost like he was a shaggy dog. Dude, this dog was freaking awesome. He was the most gentle giant. Towards the end, he was literally blind and deaf. He was such a sweetheart nonetheless. He was literally the best dog, and I'm so happy to have known him and had him as my first pet. The next pet we got was obviously not a very great experience. His name was Bandit. And fun fact, I fought extremely hard in Wild Child's era to convince my family to name him Oreo, but nobody seemed to like that name because they're all losers, Your Honor. They all are close-minded, fun-hating losers. I think the most irritating part about having this dog being introduced into my life is the fact that my parents did not research getting this dog. They told me my entire life this dog was an Italian Shepherd. Look at that thing. It is a Burmese mountain dog. There is no way this thing is an Italian Shepherd. They literally did not do any research at all. They had no idea what breed they were even bringing home, and the fact that it was aggressive towards small children and prey, and I suffered greatly because of this. This dog was very mean to me. I don't think it was necessarily the dog's fault. I think it's more of my parents' fault. Nevertheless, Wild Child was terrified of this dog. I had bad experiences with this dog. I have permanent scars over this dog. It's not very fond memories. I think that's mostly the reason why I decided to kind of make him a very angular character, like very spiky looking, and give him red features, like a very noticeable red of a dangerous kind of red. And obviously, if you could see the first sketch I ever had of him, he was just like this angry little spike ball. But I thought that was a little disrespectful to Wild Child because, yeah, this dog was genuinely terrifying, and I don't want to dismiss her experience, so I did end up making him a little more serious character when the episode about him premiered. But this was Bandit. Not much else to say about him other than I wish the experience could have gone better. Time for a cutie sweetie pie dog, my Nanny and Papa's little white schnauzer named Buttons. Buttons was my best freaking friend, dude. That dog grew up with me and I love her to bits. And the reference photo I found online looks almost identical to her. She was a miniature white schnauzer. She had this pink collar. She had this bushy little mustache, and I loved her so dang much, man. She was so talented, honestly. She knew how to do so many tricks. And she was so well behaved. I almost never heard her bark unless you were coming home and she was really excited. But overall, she was like the perfect size dog. I was able to walk her by myself as a kid, and I literally felt so connected to this dog because she was just so loyal. She would sleep with us, she would play with us, she would literally lay under your seat when you were eating at the dinner table. She was just such a great little dog. And I have so many wonderful memories with her, and I'm so happy to have had a few dogs in my life who were just literally top tier experience. Buttons, my sweet little girl, I love you so much. I was so happy I got to draw you so many times in Persona Project. and I hope I get to draw you many times more. Moving on to some characters we haven't seen yet from this point forth. It's going to be all new characters to Persona Project. Some of them I'm not even sure will show up in Persona Project, just because there is a lot to cover in Persona Project and sometimes I don't get to every single thing that's happened to me. But these two cats were named Maddie and Macy. They were my nanny and papa's cats. They were rescues. Basically, my nanny and papa lived in this kind of gated community area, and just outside of the community was a large assisted living facility. And a lot of elderly people would be admitted into there, and sometimes they couldn't bring their pets. So the facility would often put up signs outside advertising what pets needed to be adopted. And my nanny and papa decided to take in these two cats. Maddie was the big fluffy boy. He definitely had a big attitude. He loved sleeping in the bathroom sink, and he was such a big sweetie. He was just such an attention needy little guy. But so quiet too. But Macy, oh, she takes the cake. She was definitely a very skittish cat. She was very shy. She was very, very quiet. You almost never knew she was even there. She was literally Maddie's little shadow. And they're brother and sister, actually, which I thought was really fun, that they got to stay together pretty much their whole lives, no matter how many times they got rehomed, which is always such a sweet thing. Wild Child especially had a soft spot for Macy because she was so shy. I would literally crawl under the bed to be with her and bring her some treats and just quietly feed her some treats and just sit with her at a distance, just to show her that she was still loved, even if she wasn't comfortable coming out and showing it like Maddie. And these two were just such a cute little duo. I loved giving them their slight little details, little different features, Macy's little heart nose. Just so much fun to draw them, and so many nostalgic fun memories I have with these two little adorable kitties. Now this little guy is what Wild Child deems to be her first pet. It was her responsibility with this one. I got a pet gerbil, and I named him Speeder. Speeder was undoubtedly my dad's favorite pet. I don't know why. My dad got so stinking attached to this little rat, but whatever. Speeder was this little gerbil who honestly did not have as big of an attitude as my other gerbils that I had, and I appreciate that so much. I think I just got really lucky with my first gerbil. He was actually like really nice, and he loved to run in his ball and like everything, dude. This little guy was the goat when it came to having a rodent as a pet. There really wasn't much special about his design that I could think of, other than just to stay true to my memories. So he's just this all white little gerbil, and I always just thought he was such a chipper little guy, so I gave him a big ol' enthusiastic smile. And this was my absolute favorite pet rodent, my little Speeder. We mostly named him this because he would run on the wheel so fast he would fling himself off. But you know what? He was fine. He was just silly, you know? Now for the opposite spectrum of the gerbil experience. I had one gerbil who was this gray, evil gerbil. Okay, this guy was like, I don't know what happened, man. He woke up and chose violence. This guy would constantly bite you. It would literally scream at you. I didn't even know gerbils and hamsters could scream up until this guy. By the way, his name is Templeton because I was a huge Charlotte's Web fan, and I thought he looked like Templeton the rat. He was a gerbil, and I think I really offended him by continuously calling him a rat and naming him Templeton, so I think he was getting his revenge. But he was this extremely angsty little guy who you literally could not touch. It was so horrible. I don't know what possessed this poor gerbil. He didn't even want to do anything fun with me. He was definitely just a sad experience for Wild Child. So I made him this grumpy, grouchy little man, and that's just how I remember him. Oh, Templeton. Oh, Templeton. Next up are my beloved little yellow-bellied turtles. I love them so dearly, oh my gosh. So I had two of them. The first one I had was named Scooter. Scooter was this really fast turtle. I remember going to the pet store, my dad surprised me and said I could actually take one home. I thought we were just looking, and I was like, oh my god, wait, we get to take a pet home? Oh my god! So I got all excited, and I think my dad was not expecting me to say a turtle, but nevertheless supported the decision. We got the turtle. because Speeder was the fastest one out of all of them. And when I got him, he was so little. He was like the palm of your hand, tiny little guy. And I used to love watching him sun on the rocks and have a sweet little time swimming in his tank, and we got to feed him little special treats and things, and it was so much fun. Then the next turtle I got was Flipper, who my dad swore to me was Scooter's long-lost family relative, whether it be a cousin, brother, whatever. I totally know that wasn't true now, but I definitely believed it as wild child. And Flipper was this very nonchalant little turtle who had kind of a bit of a sass to them, and Flipper was named Flipper because on the way home when we had his little box, he just kept flipping like upside down and right side up, like literally just doing flips for me, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So for Scooter, I gave Scooter this little doinker, like this little swirly, because I thought it'd be fun to have them have tiny little distinctive features you could tell them apart. And then Flipper has the cool little sunglasses, just to give them some kind of characteristics, because they were little characters of their own, and these were my pet turtles. I loved them dearly. The next step in my pet adventure was definitely a big one. When my parents got divorced and I moved to my dad's house, there was a stray cat there who my dad instantly started feeding because my dad had the biggest heart for animals ever. And you wonder where I get it from. But this is Mama Cat. We named her this because she was definitely going to be having kittens. And I know as a wild child I was like absolutely freaking excited, over the moon over having kittens on the premises. So it was definitely a big waiting game, and while I waited, I read every single book in the library about cats and cats breeds and how to take care of them. And that was the moment I decided I wanted to become a vet and help Mama Cat take care of these kittens. And when those kittens arrived, it was the best day of my life for sure. Definitely a very big defining moment for wild child. Mama Cat was this really sweet tortoiseshell kind of calico. I don't have an exact picture of her, unfortunately, but she was this very kind of dark colored cat. She was honestly very sassy and very bold and independent. She definitely wanted attention on her terms. She was honestly just the perfect balance of being an outdoor cat and an indoor cat. She loved the attention when she wanted it, and then when she wanted out, she wanted to go and be free. And we let her live that life with us up until her kittens were all grown up. Like, she just was so loyal to us, and I loved Mama Cat with all my heart. Mama Cat, you were the best mama to all of your babies. You can rest assured they had a wonderful life with us too. One of Mama Cat's kittens, my brother's absolute favorite cat, is named Tom, and I actually have a picture of him. I'm so happy. I sadly don't have a lot of pictures from my past for pretty obvious reasons, but when I do stumble across the very few and far in between I have, it brings so much joy to my heart to see my babies again. Tom was this gray striped cat, and my brother named him Tom because we were obviously very obsessed with Tom and Jerry, and when he was a little kitten, he was very gray. So we always made Tom into this character of like, he's the cool cat, he's the guy in charge, he is the leader of the pack, like he is the oldest brother, and so he's this very cool kind of character. I gave him all of these nice features, like this little goatee, like this little beard. I thought that was so super cute to give him this little beard because he's just the cool guy, and he was very fluffy. I got fluff coming out of his ears all over. He has this big mane, he's got the big fluffy tail. He's definitely like strutting it. Like, this is so true to Tom's character, and Wild Child is just giggling and kicking her feet because I used to make books and comics about my cats all the time. So giving my old characters based off of my cats like a redesign was just so soul healing. But this was Tom, the goat, best big brother you could ever ask for. His sister, Jealous, is up next. That's actually a picture of her as well. Very excited to actually have pictures of these guys. Jealous was a very light-colored tortoiseshell, and she had this kind of split face, which was really cool and interesting, which made me believe that maybe she has also had a little bit of calico in her too. But her design was extremely complex because of this. Like, all of the tortoiseshell and calico cats are obviously going to be like super complex. I'm gonna need to dull these down when it comes to making animations, of course. But it's nice to have some really fleshed out designs just for drawing fan art or just drawing in general. Jealous was a very sassy little queen. She definitely had her attitude. She would just hiss out of nowhere just to be like, ugh, I'm so done with you. Such a sassy little thing, and I loved her so much for that. I used to love writing stories about Tom and Jealous specifically. They're the closest out of the siblings. They had such a wonderful bond. They ended up being like the leaders of the group in my opinion. Like Jealous was definitely the matriarch, and she was named Jealous because as a little baby kitten, she would wiggle her way over if you were petting any other kitten or paying attention to any other kitten. She was the attention hog. She was super jealous. And that's like such a silly name for a cat, but you know, my dad was so cool about us naming these kittens, and we got to stay true to what we actually wanted to name them. And in some cases, they were names that didn't make any sense. Although one of the names that didn't make it into the pool, which I'm extremely grateful for, my dad saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't name a poor animal this, was we wanted to name one of the kittens Licky, like as in licky tongue, like the Pokemon, because the kitten was always like trying to give you little kisses and stuff, and my dad was like, maybe we shouldn't name the poor thing Licky Tongue or Licky, that's sad. That's a bit of a too silly of a name, and now looking back as an adult, I'm like, yeah dad, you're kind of right, that would have been sad for that poor cat. Luckily, that name didn't make it in, and we named that kitten something else. But this is my big, beautiful, fluffy girl Jealous, the queen herself. The kitten in question who dodged the very horrible name of Licky is actually this little girlie. Her name is Squirt, and we named her Squirt because we were huge fans of Nemo at the time, and she was the runt of the litter. So we thought that would be a perfect name for this little girl. And she was honestly the most athletic, the most talented out of all of the kittens. Dude, she literally would do handstands, so of course I made her doing that pose in her little design because I had to stay true to her talents. Okay, she was talented. Honestly, all of these kittens were so unique. None of them looked like each other at all. Like, genuinely, they all could have had different fathers. It's kind of crazy how different a lot of them were. But Squirt was kind of this brown cat with white features. I don't have a picture of her, unfortunately. I had to grab some reference, just something that kind of looked vaguely like her. But I do remember her being like a very short-haired, very sleek kind of cat. She was definitely like more of the hunter. She was definitely more of the runner, the tricks kind of cat. She was definitely had that aloof nature like her mother. She definitely was more of a go out and come back and hang out type of thing, where Tom and Jealous ended up becoming mostly indoor cats. Squirt was definitely more of an outdoor cat, which was fine. We definitely loved when she would visit, but she had a free spirit. And she was just so much fun. She was such a good girl when she did come around and want her attention. She was so sweet when she wanted to. But yeah, I mean, everybody who has a little bit of mama cat in them, it definitely has some sass. And we have to respect that. Here's our talented little girlie, our little runt Squirt. The last of our kittens, of Mama Cat's kittens, is this big orange fella. And if you've been following me for a while on my Instagram, my YouTube, pretty much anywhere, you would understand that this cat is none other than Frisco. Frisco was one of the longest living kittens out of this group. He actually recently passed away a few years ago, like 2 years ago, okay? He lived an extremely long, healthy life, full of grumpiness. Frisco was a big, massive grump. He was like a 22-pound, basketball-shaped orange cat, and he was fluffy. He definitely had Maine Coon in him. He was super fluffy, he was super grouchy and mean. You could barely touch him. His head was so disproportionately small to his body. He was such a character, Frisco was. It was one of those things where we had obviously like a ton of cats at my dad's house, and it was getting pretty overwhelming. So I ended up being able to take one of the kittens to my mother's, and she opted on taking the orange cat because, quote, it was the most beautiful. And boy did karma bite her in the butt so bad, because this cat ended up being such a little tyrant. He was so insane, dude. He was such a crazy kitten, so destructive, so hyper, so bouncing off the wall. And by the way, I need to make this note. My mother tried to name this cat Melman, like the giraffe from Madagascar, and we were like adamant of being like, no, his name needs to be Frisco because he's like super frisky and like super excited and like he's super crazy or whatever. Luckily, us kids won that battle because I could not imagine this poor thing being named after a Madagascar character, dear God. But anyways, for his design, obviously very triangular, very spiky, very fluffy, very grumpy, big bushy eyebrows. I feel like towards the end, he really gave in and decided to be nice, and I would be lying if I said I didn't miss him. Poor Fwigo. We used to joke and call him Fwigo. We miss Fwigo. Oh, my big orange basketball boy. The next pet is a really unique experience that I had, where my dad would work at a bunch of different job sites as an electrician, and one time he stumbled across a little kitten, of course, and he decided to turn it into a whole thing. He picked us up from school early. We were like, oh my god, we're going to a theme park. Me and my brother like both got signed out, and we're looking at each other in the office. We're like, oh, we're going to a theme park, let's go. And then we get back in the car and there's a kitten, and we were like, oh my god, like we were freaking out. He was so tiny. He was a little Siamese cat, and we decided to name him Cuddles because he was the most cuddly, tiny little thing when we first got him. Cuddles ended up becoming such a little brat. Like, dude, this cat went from being like the baby of the family to like the sassiest, like little, like spoiled rotten prince you've ever met, dude. Cuddles was a character, to say the very least. Unfortunately, we didn't have him very long because my father, an intellectual, definitely didn't do his part on getting this cat fixed in time, so he ran away from home, never to return. But nevertheless, the time that we did get to spend with Cuddles was very fun. He loved eating bacon so much that he would steal it off of your plate and then growl at you and hiss at you if you tried to take it from him. He was just a charming little guy. Just a very classic Siamese, short hair, big, bold, broad face. He was such a fun cat to have for the short amount of time that we did. Alright, gamers, next cat has a little bit of a theory around it, and yes, there's more cats. I have lots of cats, okay? There's a lot of cats. There's the reason why I'm a cat person, okay? Another cat that we had that was a stray that showed up long after Mama Cat had disappeared, pretty much, came this little cat who looked shockingly like Mama Cat. My dad had a theory that this cat basically was another one of Mama Cat's kittens, like another litter that she had, because she was just this tiny little version of Mama Cat who was very shy and skittish and a lot more feral, and it took a lot of time to have her warm up to us. My dad named her Lucky Tiger because she had these little features that almost made her very tiger-like, very fluffy, very square kind of shape to her. But Lucky Tiger definitely needed a lot more TLC and a lot more time to warm up to everything. So I'd spend a lot of time as a kid sitting outside with food and slowly talking to her from afar and slowly getting her to be acclimated to being around us. And she warmed up eventually, but she was always a very shy character. She was another one of those great, like, agile cats, a great hunter too. But she was just kind of this shy and sweet little character kind of in the background of my childhood. And just a reminder that Mama Cat was still out there somewhere. Her babies found their safe haven once more, despite her not being as attention-seeking as Tom or jealous. Lucky Tiger is still a sweet little girl, and I still think she was a treasure to have in the family. Another stray cat who wandered onto our premises. Yes, we just had like a million strays that we would feed, and my creative little mind as Wild Child would turn every single one of these cats into characters for my little book series. And this guy was one of my absolute favorite characters to write and draw pretty much ever in my childhood. This is Butch. He is this big, definitely Warrior Cats-esque tomcat who was just this big, bad, muscular, strong guy. He had like a missing ear. He had a snaggle tooth. His tail was missing mysteriously. Like, he was a rough and tough kind of guy. He definitely had gotten into like his series of fights for sure. And we would just watch him come and eat, and he would be so sweet, honestly. He was such a nice cat. Like, he was definitely, like, domesticated in some kind of way, because, yeah, he was very nice to us, and it was always such a fun thing to be like, he's like this big bad cat, and he fits in all these fights, but he has such a soft spot for Wild Child and Rocky, which is so stinking cute, dude. I definitely had way too much fun designing him because he has such unique features. He has such a defined shape language and just all of these fun different patterns. Honestly, another theory we had was that maybe Butch was maybe Tom, Jealous, Squirt, and Frisco's father. Although he doesn't look too much like them, maybe he's at least one of their fathers. Because he definitely has some of Tom's features. And that's just like kind of my cat lore, I guess. My convoluted, like, stray cat community, my colony that I had in my backyard as a kid lore. Oh, Butch was so awesome, man. He is such a cool cat, and he had survived so many epic battles, and I think he's still one of the coolest cats I ever had. Inching out of Wild Child's era and into Blackbird's era, we are going to see some pretty unique pets that come up here. This little bunny was my brother's pet. My brother got a pet rabbit for one of his birthdays, and this little bunny, my brother decided to name Boomer. It's honestly pretty hilarious how these names have aged over time, because Boomer now is super different from how Boomer was back then. But we honestly mostly called him King Boomy, like the Avatar The Last Airbender character. So I would honestly just call him Boomy more than Boomer. But Boomer was this very, very bratty rabbit. Oh my god, this guy was spoiled rotten, dude. I feel like my mother loved that rabbit more than anyone personally, and that's kind of where he gets it from. I think he got all the brattiness from her and all of the spoiled rotten annoyingness from her, but I never got too attached to this bunny. It was just my brother's, like, absolute favorite pet, and Boomer was the sassiest. He wanted his greens and he wanted his vegetables delivered right on time, and if not, he would thump the bottom of his cage really loud and retort. He would be so upset if his meals were even remotely late or his water was just a little dirty. Like, he was definitely a little tyrant, so I gave him a little crown, even though it's kind of the silliest thing I've done on all these character designs. I just couldn't resist not giving King Boomy his crown. So there you go, Boomer. Enjoy your little legacy as the spoiled rotten king of my brother's heart. Next came a few dogs, actually. We had another set of dogs enter our family when my dad got involved with a not-so-great girlfriend, but at least the dogs that came out of it were a pretty positive experience. Haha! So, the first dog is named Taco, and let me just tell you right off the bat, this dog was not a Chihuahua. If this gives you any indicator of how these people were like, they named this corgi Taco, thinking it was a Chihuahua. I can guarantee you that dog was not a Chihuahua. Maybe a little bit of Chihuahua, but when it comes to his sheer size, yeah, that thing was a corgi 100%. But anyways, Taco was 100% my brother's dog. Taco never left my brother's side. It was so sweet. They would do everything together. Because Taco was this big fluffy guy, just the sweetest dog. Never made a peep unless you started like barking at him or howling with him. He literally was the super greatest dog for us as kids. He was small enough that we could take care of him, much like Buttons. He just did everything with us together, and I have such fond memories of Taco. I gave him very round, fluffy, soft features because he was just a big, huggable sweetheart. This is Taco. Last funny tidbit little story about Taco. For some reason, we nicknamed him Fat, which is so sad when I look back and think about it, because we'd be like, you're so fat, haha, come on, fatty. But like, that's so mean for one thing. Another thing, he wasn't fat, he was just a corgi, he wasn't a Chihuahua. Like, Taco, I'm so sorry that they did you like this. They did you so dirty. I don't know why they kept calling you fat. You literally were a perfect size for a corgi, man. I'm so sorry, dude. You were the best, man. You deserve better for sure. Oh god, the next dog I had the displeasure of coming in contact with was my dad's girlfriend's dog named Cheech. from Cheech and Chong, which I have lots of feelings about that I won't get into. It's just bad feelings all around. Just really cringe, horrible, awful feelings about the way that this woman named her animals. Good lord. But anyways, Cheech was a demon. Cheech was horrible. I don't have very much to say about him other than he was the most rabid, aggressive, evil little chihuahua I've ever met in my entire life, and I understand why people don't like chihuahuas. This is why. This dog is the exemplar freaking dog when it comes to why these dogs goddamn suck. Cheech was evil, dude. You couldn't do anything without him growling. He growled so much. Like, he would just be sitting there cleaning himself and he'd be growling angrily. Like, he hated to be alive. That dog was miserable at all points in time. He also just looked like a freaking alien, dude. He looked so dumb. His eyes were like bulging out of his head. He was so small and he literally just was the most generic brown dog. He had no notable features other than being mad 24/7. So of course, in his design, I made him extra silly, because to me, he was extra silly. He literally thought he was like 50 feet tall and a giant guard dog and that he could shoot lasers out of his eyes. Bro was literally the size of your foot. Okay, he definitely was the definition of ankle biter. He was not the most fun pet I've had. So, sorry, Cheech. I had to do it to you because you put me through hell, so this is your legacy. Oh, and now it's time for the counterpart. The good, the bestest part that came out of this whole experience. I had a teacup chihuahua named Muffin. Muffin was my baby girl, dude. Muffin was my dog. This was the first dog that was actually ever mine. I can't even describe you what it means to have like a soulmate pet. But Muffin was one of my soulmate pets, for sure. She was tiny, tiny, tiny. I would literally take my big fuzzy socks and cut holes in them to make little sweaters for her. I learned how to sew because I really wanted to sew little clothes for her. And I would do that, and she would literally put on little fashion shows with me. She literally did everything with me, and she was just so tiny and cute. Like, every time she shook her head, she'd be like, "Pfft." Like, it would just sound so small and cute and tiny. She was just literally so adorable, and she had this adorable little pink collar, of course, with these little gemstones on. She was a bit of a little bougie little girl. She definitely knew how to strut her stuff because I gave her so many awesome fashion items. This was Blackbeard's best friend for sure. I really do miss this dog, man. As much as I don't like little dogs and I prefer big dogs when it comes to just having like a family dog, there was just something about her and her sweetness that just really brought me so much comfort during probably literally one of the worst times of my life. So she was just such a big comfort and big support for me for a really long time, and that's really why I cherish Muffin so very much. My little Muffin girl, oh, she's so sweet, y'all. I'm gonna cry just thinking about her. Away from the crying aspect of this video that I knew was gonna be inevitable, we're gonna talk about the next cat that we got, and this is gonna be, like very early Parker era, very tail end of Blackbird era. This was a cat that we got after the evil girlfriend left, essentially, and took all the dogs with her. So this cat is named Misty. She's a Russian blue, very fluffy, and extremely attitudey. You want to talk about a cat with sass? Man, all my other sassy cats I was talking about can't even remotely compare to Misty. We nicknamed her Misty May, short for Misty Mayhem. She was chaotic in that sense when she was a baby. She was very hyper and very needy, and she definitely ruled over the house. But Misty May was definitely a huge part of Parker's life when it came to honestly writing 12. Misty was one of those big inspirations. Parker's era was my photographer era, so Misty was definitely one of my favorites to photograph because she was just such a photogenic kitty. I gave her slightly different little variations of gray features on her to show just how luscious and the sheen of her fur was. It was just so glorious. She had this like really raspy meow. It was like a meow. Like she had this really like kind of gross meow, which is funny because she acted like she was all high and mighty but had this like scraggly little meow.
What about it?
Oh, Misty Mayhem, Misty May, baby girl, kitty kitty girl girl, all your millions of nicknames. You were definitely the favorite of the house, probably still my dad's favorite to this day. The next pupper in my life ended up being my grandparents' next dog after Button sadly passed away. We had gotten this little puppy named Zippy, who was supposed to be a reference to the song Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My oh my, what a wonderful day. So that was Zippy's little name origin, and she was this, holy crap, she was the dumbest dog I've ever met. Like, just so dumb, dude. This poor thing was just so head empty. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Zippy. That thing was head empty. Buttons was like the smart girl. She knew how to do all of the tricks and stuff, and she was so well behaved. Zippy was like a nightmare child. Zippy didn't understand a word you were saying, was so hyper, literally couldn't learn a single goddamn command if literally her life depended on it. And she was just kind of useless little thing that my grandparents toted around and were just like, stop saying that about her, she's not stupid. And I'm like, gamers, that dog was so dumb, like, just let her be what she is. She is just a silly, dumb little girl, and she doesn't understand anything that's happening unless it's food going into her mouth. Like, that is all that thing ever did. So that was Zippy. This is my grandparents' stupid little dog. God, I had to capture that expression, dude. She always had this big dumb smile. Oh god, that thing. It would not be a pets video if I didn't talk about my girl Avery. Towards the latter half of Parker's era, this cat showed up on my driveway at my mother's house. She was in really bad shape, so I brought her inside and called my mother and said, hey, I found a cat outside, please don't kill me, she's in the laundry room. To which I almost got killed. Anyways, but Avery ended up becoming part of our household one way or another. She was basically an outdoor cat who would come in every now and then after I made sure she was safe and well and got back up into health. She was tiny. She was this tiny little tuxedo. She had the sweetest little eyes, dude. Eyes like I've never seen before. She just had this little expression about her where you could tell she had been through something so horrific, but she was still just so sweet and loving, forgiving of the world. She was definitely just an adventurer at heart. She would walk laps around our neighborhood. Like, we'd be going on walks and we'd be like, is that Ave? And she'd just be across the street, like, blocks away from home. She just had this big heart, big adventurous heart, and I loved the time that I got to spend with her when she would come home. Especially when it was cold out, we'd let her in and make her stay nice and warm inside. And Ave was just, honestly, Hawley era was like when Avery was like my best friend for sure. Because Frisco sure as heck wasn't my best friend. So Avery and Frisco were kind of the dynamic duo of two different sides of the same coin. Hawley and Ave were very inseparable. Unfortunately, when I moved, I wasn't able to bring her with me because she was so used to her territory and she was so used to being outdoors that I really didn't think she was gonna flourish very well in a place where it snowed and had very harsh weather compared to what she was used to, and I was just really worried overall that she wouldn't survive the trip because she was so old and frail by that point. So I made sure that she ended up going into a barn cat society where she would live out her rest of her days, being able to enjoy the beautiful outdoors she had always known and been a lot more comfortable and safe. So I had to make a really tough decision during Haley's era to kind of give her up in that way, and it is definitely something that makes me bittersweet nowadays, where I think about how life could have been if she could have come with me. Nevertheless, I hope she is living the best life. I hope I've made the best decisions for her, and I hope that she continues to flourish in a world she is most comfortable in. This is an interesting pet because it was a pet fish that I had, and this was definitely a Parker and Hawley era thing as well. This was a fish I got like a long time ago. I don't even know how many years ago. It was like Blackbird era. I've had this fish for a long time. This fish was named Ramen. This was Ramen, my little fish. He was an albino weather loach, which means anytime the barometric pressure would change, he would basically swim up and down the tank in like this wiggly little fashion where he would indicate like, hey, it's gonna rain. So that's kind of a fun fact about weather loaches. They're very attuned to the weather. And he was literally just this silly little guy. He had this little like mole mouth, and he was just this little bottom feeder, little algae eater guy. And I freaking love this fish so much. He was so awesome. At one point we had this whole tank just for him. Like, he was just the king of all fish in my heart. I even put him in 12, like, in the background. Like, I freaking immortalized this fish because I loved him so dearly. Unfortunately, when Hurricane Irma hit, it knocked out all of the tank's power, and no matter what I was able to do, even with my, you know, all the resources I had to save him, it wasn't enough. So sadly, the hurricane took him from me, but the time that I got to spend with this fish was incredible. This fish lived so long. Like, I think it was like 8 years or something this fish was alive, which was just so crazy. Crazy how long this fish lived. Ramen, you're so freaking cool, dude. Once my stepmother became a huge part of our family, she had definitely convinced my father to get, yeah, more cats. Because my stepmom was just as bad as me, okay? Like, we were just crazy cat people, alright? And so we ended up adopting some pets who weren't very fortunate. Like, we basically went and found either special needs pets or pets who had a lower chance of being adopted. So this boy was my brother's absolute favorite. This was my brother's best friend. Like, forever, always. This is Lucky. Lucky is this very long-snooted, very shaped guy. He was just a tall, lanky cat, and he was this striped little boy. He ended up having, like, respiratory issues, and nobody wanted to adopt him because of that, so we ended up adopting him. Lucky was just such a good cat, man. He was everything our other cats were, but just tiny little facets of it. He had the cool aspect of Tom. He had the jealous, like, I need all the attention. He had the squirt talent. Like, he was just so awesome. We had so many fun nicknames for him. He was Lucky Lou, Lucky Bowie. I don't know where Bowie came from. You know, pet nicknames, dude. You never know. But Lucky Bowie was definitely a sweet boy. I really enjoyed designing his character. It feels perfect. I think it's the best one out of all of them. This is just so true to him, and I couldn't have been more happier to have known him. Oh, now this is my baby girl. This is Patch. Patch is my one-eyed wonder, my little baby girl. She was a little tuxedo, and she was all curled up in the corner, all sad. Nobody wanted to adopt her because she had one eye, and I was like so smitten with her from day one. She was just so sweet, so precious. She was nothing but loving. She genuinely had no other features. She was never nippy, she was never sassy, she was never mean in any kind of way. She didn't even hunt. Like, she just straight up wanted to be loved 24/7. Boy, did I deliver, because she deserved it, because she was so freaking awesome and cute. So funny too. She had the highest pitched meow I've ever heard in my entire life. It was just like she was stuck as a kitten forever. Like, her voice was just kitten forever, and she just was the embodiment of cute. She melted my soul, this little kitten. Oh my god, this cat was everything to me. And I loved how she had a couple little patches on her too, so it was more than just naming her like, oh, eye patch, like she has one eye, but it was definitely like she had little patches too. And I gave her a little heart nose because she was so sweet. It just, I wanted every aspect of her design to just exemplify how freaking adorable and sweet she was. And this is Patch, my baby girl. I love her. During Hawley's era, I worked at the pet store, and I was a manager at one point, and I knew obviously a lot about animals. Reptiles, fish, rodents, cats, dogs, you name it. I was certified in a lot of different aspects of pet care and nutrition, and my brother was really interested in hermit crabs at the time. We had quite a few hermit crabs. Obviously, it's best to have them in groups, and they require very, very meticulous care. Hermit crabs are sadly one of the most neglected animals when it comes to any animals that are sold in a pet store. People genuinely don't know how to take care of these poor guys. You have to be pretty much an expert to take care of them, and luckily I was, and they lived very long, happy, healthy lives. Nevertheless, this crab was my brother's absolute favorite. His name was Hardcase. He was named after one of the stormtroopers from the Clone Wars, I believe. Don't quote me on that. My brother was the Star Wars fan. I was not. I apologize if I'm misconstruing any characters or anything. But my brother named all of the crabs after, like, Star Wars characters. They were so much fun, dude. They were really sweet little guys, and they never pinched us. They never did anything naughty. But one time they did escape their cage, and my mother had a freak out. She hated these things. They was like crawling around the room and she was freaking out. Like it was like a loose tarantula or something. Like it was so funny how scared she was of these things. And that's honestly one of my most fond memories of the crabs. Also, side note, apparently I got the shell color wrong. My brother corrected me. I can't believe my brother remembered something that I didn't, which is just a rarity. Honestly, like that never happens. I'm usually the one that remembers everything, so the fact that he remembered something should prove to you everything you need to know. His shell was supposed to be white. I apologize for that. I will fix that detail when it comes to the episode of Persona, but just for the record, Hardcase had a white shell. Thank you, Evan, for reinforcing my memories with some details here. Next up, we have our sweet little mice. Oh, this was definitely like towards the end of Hawley's era. Oh, we had these little mice and they were so sweet. They were sisters named Jakku and Tatooine, which are two planets from Star Wars, again, because my brother, you know, was a big Star Wars fan. And Jakku was kind of the big queen of the group. She was like this kind of orange-colored, very plump little girly. And then Tatooine was like this little agile, little sandy little girl who was honestly like the hard worker, was always cleaning everything, was always organizing all their little foods and like doing all of their little activities. And meanwhile, Jakku was like, I'm going to sit in my big nest and sleep. And they had such big personalities. Honestly, I used to love caring for the mice and rats and the rodents at the pet store, but rats and mice just take the cake for me. They are some of the best animals in the whole wide world. I personally call them heartbreak animals because they have very short lifespans, and because they have such big, awesome personalities and big, beautiful hearts, it is just so hard to have them sometimes because of how short of a life they have. It can just be so heartbreaking. So I'm very grateful for the time that I have with these sweet little mice, even though it was so short. They had the best lives freaking ever, dude. And I'm so happy that these two sisters got to flourish and we got to spend a little part of our lives with them. Oh boy, I'm gonna have so much to say about this cat because guess what? We're caught up. This is my cat right now. This is Indiana Jones, aka Indy, aka Bibby. Bibby is my boy, dude. Bibby is my emotional support animal. He is my world. This cat is 100% my soul animal. Like, he is my freaking partner in crime. We do everything together. This is, like, the cat ever for me. I basically raised Bibby since he was 2 days old. Someone came into the pet store and found him in a car engine. All the employees at the pet store took turns fostering Bibby, and his first name was Tigger, actually, like from Winnie the Pooh. And so we kept taking turns bottle feeding him throughout the night and taking care of him, and he's just such a little trickster. He got stuck in a freaking sticky trap for like insects that we had in the pet store because we let him roam free in the pet store with a little collar on with a jingle so we could know where he is. And he got stuck in an insect trap and we had to give him this like baby oil bath. He was such a nightmare kitten, dude. But when it came time for somebody to full on take him home and adopt him, I couldn't leave him. I was so attached by that point. I had watched him grow up from the size of like my hand to like almost a full-grown cat. I was like, I can't give you up. So I took him home and he's been mine ever since. Since then, he has become a special needs animal. He has a lot more complications than anyone could have ever predicted, but that doesn't change anything for me. I still love and care for him so deeply. He is my best friend. He's always there for me when I need him most, and he really is truly the best cat. Big personality, silliest guy. He has so much energy, he has so much love. He's just my world for sure. Animals have always been a giant part of my life, and I am so happy that I was able to bring Bibby along with me through my big life transition in Haley's era. Because now Bibby gets to do things like enjoy the snow and explore the new environment, and we get to go along and live the rest of our lives in so much more peace. We're both still really traumatized, and like it's crazy that me and the animal are traumatized together. Like we both jump and react at the same sounds. And we're still getting used to this more peaceful life that we have here, but I could just go on forever about Indiana Jones. I could go on forever about my bib, my biob, my boob. I will leave it with, this is the best animal I've ever had, and I love him to bits, and I will be talking a lot more about Bibby when we get into more current eras for sure. The last cat I want to mention is Pepsi. And this is my brother's cat, who we adopted in the Haley era, like literally right before the transition period started. He was this really interesting little kitten who showed up at our pet store, and basically his name was Winchester at first, which was, you know, I have feelings about that, but anyways, we renamed him to Pepsi. It was either gonna be Mochi or Pepsi, and I thought that Pepsi was a much cuter name, personally, because my brother has like a soda obsession, so I was like, it would be a crime if you didn't name a cat after soda at some point. So Pep is this weird cat, dude. This cat is like barely a cat. Like, he's more akin to a raccoon. He is literally like the Maine Coon I've ever seen, but he's also really stubby and short. He just wiggles his tail like a dog. He's such a strange entity, Pepsi, because he doesn't act like a cat. He acts like an amalgamation of like a raccoon dog cat. And he just is so quiet and sweet. Like, he has never clawed or bit anyone in his life. He just has this temperament about him where you can't really touch him, but he acts like he wants you to, where he's like waving his tail and he's all happy to see you, but like you can't touch him. He's such a bizarre creature. Pepsi's so weird, man. I'm sure if my brother sees this, he's gonna agree. He's gonna be like, yeah, I don't know what that thing is. I don't know why I feed that thing. But here it is, you know? Pepsi's such a weird little guy. He's very silly. And when we ended up moving, my brother ended up choosing to take Pepsi and I chose to take Bibby. Bibby and Pepsi were freaking inseparable. They would do so much together. They would like watch lizards outside together. And so I'm really sad they had to be separated. Pepsi is also special needs, so it was honestly for the best they went to separate houses because it makes our lives easier trying to balance their special diets and medicine and stuff. So it ended up being for the best. But little Pep, weird little raccoon little Pep. There he is. Oh my god, he's so freaking funny, dude. And that concludes pretty much damn near every animal I've ever owned in my entire life. This obviously was a very extensive video, but I had to do it because I had to pay tribute to all of the amazing little critters who made my life so full of whimsy and joy. And I loved all of these babies so very dearly. They all have stories of their own that we will be exploring in every single era of Persona Project. So stay tuned, and thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoy seeing the design process, hearing the fun stories, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Vive lollipop? Vive, oh, Vive. It's a lollipop. Do you know how these things work?